McGuane gets past Brown. They're lifting the pies. They can sense it. McGuane's had 5 bounces. Nearly get another one. Round he goes. In he goes to an open goal. Mickey McGuane, goal of the year.
Mick McGuane joins us on Straight Up for this AFL preview thanks to Danks Furniture.
You won't see better than that.
With 6 local stores in the metro area, there's one near you.
Yes, for the comfort of home, Danks Furniture, and we welcome along Mickey McGuane. A very good afternoon.
G'day, Marty. How are you?
Yeah.
G'day, Mick.
Russell's here.
G'day, Russ. How are you, mate?
Good, mate.
Now, tell us about what's going up there at the Gold Coast in this 3-way exhibition match.
Yeah, it's a bit like carnival time, isn't it? Like the years gone by, the old Lightning Premiership. But Collingwood and Brisbane are playing at the moment the first 20-minute stanza. And Brisbane are 1 goal, 8 points. The Collingwood 2 behind. So it's been a slow start from a scoring perspective. Cam Rayner kicked the first goal about 12 minutes into the term. Logan Morris has started forward and he's on fire in front of the ball. They've got a very good dynamic forward line, as we know. Brisbane, Cameron's there, Loman's there. Archie started there to complement Rayner and Morris. So they look pretty lively at the moment. And Collingwood through the middle of the ground have got, well, they started with Dacos and Chris through that middle of the ground against, terrific players in Ashcroft, McCluggage and Neale. And up forward, it's good to see that they're having a look at Membry and McStay as a combination. Schultz, Hoskin, Elliott, Jamie Elliott in that part of the ground with Perryman. And it's good to see a couple of VFL boys that are training at Collingwood in ex-Docker Brady Gray get a chance, and also Curtis Taylor, who was delisted by North Melbourne at the back end of last year, get an opportunity, and they started on the ground as well.
What do you think of the format, Mick?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind it this time of year. I think the players would enjoy it, to play 40 minutes of footy, 2 20-minute quarters against 2 different opposition teams. Some younger players probably would go all day, but some of the older blokes, there'd be an argument, we need the rest, but also some older blokes would say, once I'm going, I want to keep going. So the break could be challenging. Now you manage your body in that break if you're playing a quarter and then having 2 quarters off, for example. Do you go back on and risk injury, you cool down, all that sort of stuff. Yep. So I think they'll have to manage the group particularly well.
What about the news? Just a quick one of Curnow. We were talking about this off air a while ago. Another little knee operation before the start of the season. Is this starting to get a bit of a concern for this champion forward?
Absolutely it is. Like, if I'm a Carlton supporter and football lover I want him out on the park weekly. But sort of the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's just been murmurings coming out of Carlton that all's not well with his knee, hence the reason as to why this latest news is concerning. They need him. The game needs him. And let's face it, if he's playing in that front half, it puts enormous amount of pressure on any defensive group, because the Twin Towers certainly can be targets for their midfield group in Mackay and Curnow when they're up and going. And I thought the chemistry with those two playing together a bit the last couple of years is certainly there for everyone to see. There's a good understanding of how each other plays and what role they're asked to play within the team. But if he's not there, I think it puts enormous amount of pressure on Harry. And does he become susceptible by playing on the best defender close to goal? That's something Michael Voss would have to work out if Charlie Curnow's in the grandstand watching.
I was talking to a really good football judge today. He's a Carlton man, and he's worried about them, and he's actually thinking about, I think there was a bet at 270 for them not to make the 8. He's talking about taking that. And he's worried about their depth. And what you just said about their forward line, he said, and that can happen in their back line as well with Wiedering and McGovern. They're good together, but if you lose one, they don't go as good. And he just thinks all over the ground now that they've lost Nick Newman as another key defender, that their best is very good, but they're lacking depth in a lot of places.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. If they lost Wiedering and Curnow to extended periods of time, they can't make the 8.
There you go.
Their bye's good. They got their draw's good.
Draw's good.
In the opening round.
Yep,
absolutely. They've got Richmond, Hawthorn, Western Bulldogs, Collingwood, West Coast and North.
Yeah.
So you'd think Richmond, West Coast and North would be at the bottom end of the ladder for most of the year, in all due respect. I think Hawthorn and Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs could be clearly in the top 8. If they're 3-3, they can set their season up. If they happen to turn 5-1, well, they're off and away. But if they turn 1-5 or 2-4 and have a bad loss to one of those teams that I think will struggle in Richmond, West Coast Eagles and North, it could be a long year, particularly if they get injuries to the people we're speaking about.
Very concerning, Mick. Very concerning indeed. Mate, last week, can we go back 1 week? The exhibition games last week, was there anything that you saw that really stood out as being of concern, or any big positives there with some of the younger players coming into the competition?
I always get concerned when I see a young talent get a fractured jaw in a game of footy through a stupid act from a player pushing him into a contest. I don't like that. It's a part of our game when Ruben Gibney did what he did.
So is he in trouble, Mick? Is he in trouble?
If I'm a match review officer, I would be certainly having a look at an incident like that. We know it's a free kick every day of the week, but when you sustain an injury per se, like he's sustained, which could miss a period of time, I don't think it's upon him to say I'm missing footy because of what I did. It's upon the player that pushed him into that contest, which caused the injury to happen. I just think there's no need for it. I think it's dumb footy. It's reckless footy. You approach a contest in a reckless manner and you make contact with a player yourself, where you get before the tribunal. I see this no different. And
it wasn't a good look for the game itself. It's early doors. You've got a player playing his first game at that level. It was reckless, in my view. I think he could be in real trouble.
Yeah, I think so. I just don't think it's a part of the game. Go and approach the contest. If someone leads you to it, accept that you weren't good enough in that part of the game at that part of the time. Learn from it. Maybe your positioning could have been poor, but out of frustration, you push a player into another mark, and a player's about to approach the ball and he gets injured. I think it has to be looked at, and maybe a sanction has to be applied. That aside, to get back to Marty's, Russell, your original question, I'm really concerned for the Tigers. It could be really a long year.
Yep.
And I know the Tigers have had some fantastic premierships to celebrate. They've had a magnificent dynasty attached to their club, but this could be a pain year in the view that they've lost some experience. They've got a lot of young players coming through. There's always a question mark over a couple of players. One at one end, Josh Gibcus, who I think is a very good player. Can he survive another year and not get through, overcome that knee reconstruction? And then Tom Lynch at the other end. We know he didn't play a lot of footy last year, and they certainly need him to lead the charge to make sure the Tigers are competitive in front of the ball. But with what I saw the other day, I couldn't really identify their system. I couldn't really identify their ball movement. I couldn't really identify how they wanted to set up the ground defensively. And I thought the West Coast Eagles played really good footy. If that was a premier team like a Brisbane Lions or a GWS or a Sydney with ball movement, I'd hate to see what the scoreline would be if they're going to defend the ground the way they did.
Their transition was very slow, wasn't it, Richmond? Very, very slow.
Yeah.
One team, okay, let's continue on down that track. I watched a fair bit of the Hawthorn-Geelong game, and that was a high-standard type of match, I thought so.
Yep.
But this Hawthorn forward structure is going to take a little bit of settling down until the big names get back in there, I think. Because
no doubt about that.
I'm not sure how well. I didn't like Chol's attitude in that match. He just looked disinterested, dropping marks, missing goals that he should have kicked, and no chase at all. Yeah,
it brought back memories to the year that he got told that he was no longer required at Richmond, because I thought at that stage he was an uncompetitive key forward that Damien Hardwick won't have patience with. And eventually, the irony of the story was that he went to Gold Coast for a year, and when Dimmer gets there, he ends up leaving there as well. So then you look at last year's performance, and I thought at Hawthorn, his year last year was quite outstanding in terms of his return, the goals that he scored, how he competed. I thought the two players, if we're being judgmental, they were chalk and cheese, and full credit to him. But you're right, I thought watching that game last week, the standard of that play versus the game we watched earlier was totally different, and it was a high standard. You want to see your forwards have the right body language, irrespective what stage of the year it is, and what you do after you miss a shot at goal or you drop a mark or you miss a tackle. Just get after it, and if you certainly dwell on it, I always believe you make two mistakes, get over the first mistakes and move on pretty quickly and play the game for your teammates.
And Mick, the Indigenous All Stars game versus the vanilla side, did you take anything out of that? And do you think it's something we could have every second year, possibly here in the West? It was very well supported, over 40,000 people fronted up, and they seem to really get a lot out of it, especially the Indigenous boys getting together for the first time in a decade. They gelled well. They had something to play for.
Yeah, I think Michael Walters got it right in his discussion about the game and who was the winner. I thought the game won in terms of, I know we're over cricket and we're probably looking forward to footy to start. Well, that's me anyway. And to sit back and observe that game and watch it, it was a game of probably ping pong that just got up and down the ground really quickly with not a lot of defensive pressure. But in saying that, I just was happy to watch the skills that the Indigenous boys put on display. They were quick, they were sharp, they connected really well on the footy field. There was a lot of selflessness involved. There wasn't a lot of selfish players that wanted to say, look at me, look what I can do. And I thought they really come together as a unit and as a team, and they were a delight to watch. But to answer your question, Russ, I reckon it'd be great every year to promote, one, the Indigenous theme, because the AFL have put out there that there is declining numbers. I love watching the Indigenous in full flight. But in saying that, at stages, they've got to help themselves to make sure they want to stay in the AFL system when things can get tough. And I think if they exhibit a game like that on a yearly basis, I reckon the next generation of young boys, or girls for that matter, watching a game of that magnitude, and particularly if they're Indigenous, they might even gravitate to the game at a higher level and say, well, if I want to be like Michael Walters, or if I want to be like a Sean Berger on of yesteryear, maybe I've got to start doing the work to actually exhibit the skills that I've got, the God-given talent that I've been given. And if they do that, they'll earn a good life, they'll have a good career, and they'll be able to stay in the system for a long period of time. But I think to showcase it and to have 40,000 people, as you said, in that environment, the early stages of the year when local footy hasn't started, all eyes are on that game, I think it's a fantastic promotional tool, but an educational tool as well, to say if you want to be the next generation of an Indigenous boy to play this great game, come and watch it and then go home and hone your skills and your fitness to get to the level that's required.
And Mick, there was a lot of kids there, a lot of young boys and girls that were right into it. You could see them every time they took a shot of the crowd. The young girls, the numbers there at a game of footy was phenomenal.
It sensed like watching, and obviously wasn't there firsthand, it seemed like a real family atmosphere where you'd love to bring, your son, your daughter, your wife, your mum, your dad, to watch a game of footy when there's, no 4 points on the line. It was just an exhibition game in a way, but it showcased, I thought, the talent of a lot of players, irrespective of race or religion, and it was just, the game was the winner, and I thought Michael Walters spoke beautifully post-event, and I reckon he nailed it, saying footy was the winner.
Definitely.
Mike, talking about Indigenous players, an important one for the Western Bulldogs, Jamara Ugle-Hagan back at training this week. The Western Bulldogs need him, and they need a shot of good news, because losing Cody Waitman earlier on in the week's another major blow for them.
Yeah, definitely. You've got two prominent forward fixtures in that part of the ground under some concerns going into the season. That's not ideal. To see Jamara Ugle-Hagan return to training in the AFL program, I thought was really pleasing. He's got some serious work to do, one, to win the respect back of his teammates first and foremost, but really, irrespective of that, you have to get to work behind the scenes and make sure you channel his energies into doing everything that a high-performance athlete has to do to win the respect back of your teammates, but also to play at the standard that you've signed your contract for. And we know he's a talent. We know he's capable of kicking 40 to 60 goals in a given season. And let's just hope that he's going to make some really good choices in his life to commit to the game of footy. Otherwise, he'll lose respect from his teammates and lose it pretty quickly, and he might find himself at another club if that's not the case. So, welcome back, Jamara, but it's over to you. I just want to make sure he commits to footy 24/7, and if he does, we'll be able to sit back and observe his talents that he's got, because I think we always gravitate to players with talent, irrespective of who you barrack for.
Okay, if all of a sudden next week he doesn't front, do the Western Bulldogs let that out, or will it get out or not? Or are they going to go...
I don't think they'll purposely let it out. I think it'd get out, and then questions would be asked. The messaging would be, we're here that he hasn't trained today. Is there a reason behind that? Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, the Bulldogs would have to answer that, and hopefully to be honestly and being transparent. That's what most clubs generally do really well now, to let their high membership database hear about one of their key playmakers. And I think that's always important, rather than trying to do the cover-up thing that eventually gets out anyway, and then you make yourselves look a mug as a club because you're not transparent to your members who pay their dues.
And talking about the Western Bulldogs, just on that, and players departing, Caleb Daniel's going to be a big loss for them. And then, of course, Bailey Smith on the weekend looked fantastic playing for the Cats.
Yeah, well, Bailey, we know, can get up and down the ground, and he's a fantastic athlete. He borders on being a maniac trainer, and sometimes you have to reel him in to make sure he's not overdoing it, to look after his body so he's fresh match day. But no one will be able to question what he does in terms of his work rate and his attitude to training and trying to get the best out of himself. So I was pleased to see him back out in the park and do what he does best. And obviously, Caleb Daniel, watching him train over the summer at North Melbourne, he's going to be an acquisition to them because his instruction behind the ball is elite. He's small of stature, but he's big of mouth and big of reasoning. And that's what they certainly need behind the footy, because a lot of their defenders are undersized. We know they probably become a little bit insular. They become quite territorial. Geez, I need to protect my turf because I'm playing on one of the opposition's best forwards. And you need that selfless organiser around the footy, behind the footy, in front of the footy, who can be the voice of reason to make sure they're setting up the ground they want it. And Caleb Daniel certainly provides that through his experience, but also helping these younger boys at North Melbourne elevate their game and elevate it quickly.
And he's probably that link man that North really need, that bloke that if he gets the pill, he's going to find one of your targets.
He does. He breaks up the game beautifully. We know he's not a long kick, a penetrating kick. He doesn't cover the lines now like he used to with his leg speed. He's not as quick as what he was. But if you get the ball in his hand, generally he makes the right choice. Now, is it a short 45 to break it up? He'll find it and use it and make sure he executes well. Even if it's a 35 to 45 metre longer 45, to have the dare to come back through the corridor, he'll certainly do that. And if there's nothing on, he'll just go down the line and provide a high ball for one of their key forwards to come up, and that could be a Nick Clarkey, a Cam Zerha, or even a Jack Darling now, who's in North Melbourne colours, to provide a contest down the line.
Talking with Mick McGuane for Danks Furniture. Mick, what's the latest with all the SSP selections?
I'm just excited about talking about the game that the Bulldogs and Essendon played, to watch a couple of those boys go around, and then to see some players get an opportunity. We know West Coast Eagles, for example, have elevated Sandy Brock. He signs as an Eagle, spent 3 years at Gold Coast. Jack Henderson, what a story that is. Basically trained at the Eagles, then signed at Melbourne the day after he played in the West Coast practice match versus Richmond on the Monday. And Shane McAdams' season-ending Achilles injury opened up an opportunity there for him to become available. So that's a good story in itself. And then you talk about, a boy that is basically a school teacher and kicks 4 goals in Tom Edwards against the Western Bulldogs. He signs at Bomberland and gets a well-deserved contract, and just goes to show for any young boys listening out there that never give up. And it's got to be an attitude that's ingrained in you to say that while I've got, the age bracket 18 to probably 23, even though you might get overlooked at draft time, don't give up your dreams, because those dreams can turn into reality if you believe in yourself. It's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving people right. Just have belief in what you're good at and get to work, and it's amazing those sliding door moments can happen in your favour.
So does that mean Jai Cully misses out at Melbourne?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they've got another position available. No. I might be wrong. I think the deadline is tomorrow, Friday the 21st. But clubs can keep their last spot open for the mid-season draft instead. So that's where that sits at the moment. The deadline for the SSP period, pre-season supplemental selection period, ends tomorrow. But as I said, clubs can keep list spots open for the mid-season draft. And probably if Collingwood's got a position available, that's the reason why we're there looking at a couple of young boys tonight in Brady Gray or even Curtis Taylor, who are in their VFL program. And if they perform well tonight and they have a good first half of the year, they might say, we're not going to put up a name tomorrow to come mid-season draft. If we think you've elevated your game and doing what we're asking you to do, your AFL career could be live and well.
And Mick, with the SSP, is there a deadline for when clubs can possibly move an injured player across to the long-term injured and free up a spot?
I'm not 100% sure on that, really, Russell, to be perfectly honest. That's not my strength. I leave that to the administrators and powers to be that know more about the intricacies of player draft and mid-season draft and all that sort of stuff. But we've witnessed in this time frame a player like Shane McAdam, who unfortunately succumbed to an Achilles injury. That therefore opened up an opportunity for Jack Henderson, who trained all season over at the Eagles, has now got a list spot at Melbourne. So that's a fantastic story. Just like probably the Western Bulldogs have gave a Gold Coast ruckman at VFL level in Braden Crosley, who we saw play in that match against the Bombers last week. He played all his footy at Southport last year, played in the grand final, loss against Werribee last year, and he's coming up against the list spot player that played in that Werribee grand final team in Don Brew. So they're probably going head-to-head for that one of those spots at the Western Bulldogs. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next 24 hours.
Okay, Mick, and before we get to Ballarat Trots and an update on the game that you're watching, Francis Evans gets Carlton's finalist spot. Now, export player. I don't mind this guy, Francis Evans. Played some good games last year.
Yeah, he pops up in the phone box. He can find space in that forward half. There's no question about that. It was an interesting one at Carlton because they had, Denver Granger Barrass training. They had Matt Carroll, Willie White, Sam Durden, Liam McMahon, who was at Collingwood, then kicked 45 goals last year at the AFL level for the Blues, all trained for that last spot. But full credit to Francis Evans, who's got that spot at Carlton, because I think they've identified they've lost Owies, and as many people thought he had a pretty good year. There's question marks over Motlop. Can he elevate his game? Zach Williams, is he a forward? They recruited him as a midfielder, but we've hardly seen him in midfield because when he got there he wasn't fit. They got him out of defence. So is Zach Williams the answer to that small forward, pressure forward role to hit the scoreboard? Maybe. But I think they've looked to their well and they said, gee, we may be a little bit short if we lose one or two of those boys that I mentioned. And that's the reason why Francis Evans, a noted goal kicker who can find space, as I said, in a phone box in that forward half of the ground, has got his third life at AFL footy, and good on him. 6
minutes to Pakenham, race number 3, updating Thames for Godolphin down the bottom, 4 into 2.30 for Williams. She's good on a day. Mr. Magnus, last start winner, 5.50 to 3.40. Le Derriere for Hannah Edgley has been 7 into 6. Dio up the top is 10 to 8.50. One from the trials trialled really well, Powerbound. It's been 26. It's now got into 14, back out to 18. That's Pakenham race 3. Geraldton race 4 will follow in 10. And here we have Traded Crown at $3. Knock One back at $4.80. Kazkazi on top for Mac at $8.50. Butterfly Rock $4.20 and Bahara $6.50. Let's go to Ballarat for the trots. We got a winner or two. Your last tip got home there last week, Mickey, at the good odds.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, got the wages there for the last bit of the night and stuck its head out where it mattered most. That's the main thing. Ballarat tonight, I think race 2 could be a bit of a 3-horse play. I'm pretty keen on 9 and 11, equal stake. They bet bigger odds than what they're currently at, but I think one of those will win. But I reckon there's a 60 to 1 roughie in Summerhill, number 2, that might run better than its odds indicate, so I'm certainly going to have something on it. So I'm going to back 9 and 11 equal stake and have a little bit of an insurance on number 2 on an each-way basis.
Okay.
Race 3, number 3 is the bet of the night. She has a love for C. Alford. I think it's got the capacity to go straight to the front over the short trip. And providing it doesn't over-race, it's got some tricks, this horse for Chris. I think it'll be leading and winning. Hungry Hogarth's the second favourite, and I've got no doubt Shazza Love's a better horse than it. So I think Shazza Love is the bet of the night, race 3, number 3. Race 4, there's a couple of roughies here that I could entertain. Unfortunately for our listeners, the price has gone on number 4, Royal Saxon. They put up a ridiculous quote over here in Melbourne. They put up $12 early this morning, and that's clearly half. It's into $5.50, $6 you can get in some places. I thought number 5 was a great roughie. I backed it at $41 each way. That's well and truly gone. And I've also had something on number 1, just because of where it's drawn at $17 each way. So I've backed 3 horses in that race. I think I've got the value of $12, got $41 a 5 and got $17. And I think the other bet of the night is in race 6 on the program, number 11, Black Range Glory. I think this trotter's too good for these. Bit of speed early. Number 3 will spear straight to the front. Fling at Rainbow, Chris might light it up, try to cross over. And even Charlie Walker can go forward for Herbie. And if that's the case, I think I want to back number 11, have a good bet on it. If it does everything right, it should be too good. And the horse I'm going to back to say represents good value is number 9, Shadow Justice, around $14, $15. So I'm going to back each of 2 in race 6 on the program at Ballarat tonight.
Very good, Mick. Like the sound of that.
We'll run through them again. In race number 2, you're 9 and 11 and 2.
Yep.
Race 3 our best, $1.90 Shazza Love. Now in race 4, you're 3-handed here. I've got 5, 1. What was the first number?
In race
4?
In race 4, yeah, I like 5, the roughie.
Yep.
My top pick is number 4.
4. Yep.
And the other one I'm going to save on is number 1 because it's just the odds says I have to back it. Yep.
And then race 6, 11, little save there on the 9 in the trotters.
That's it.
Beautifully done, Mick. For Danks Furniture, it's always great to catch up. You have a great week. We'll do it again. Final score up there in Gold Coast.
Yeah, Brisbane 4-6 into the second quarter. 8 minutes and 45 seconds in, Collingwood 1-2. Collingwood's 450 entry has been atrocious, so that's something they've got to work on. And no doubt Craig McRae will be challenging the ball users going inside 50 because at this stage it's below par.
Who are Brisbane rucking with?
Oscar McInerney started.
Yeah, and he fought. Is he out there?
I haven't seen him because I've been concentrating on
Yes.
what we've been talking about. But McInerney's in the centre bounce at the moment. And it looks like McStay's in there for Collingwood, giving Cameron a bit of a chop out by the look of things.
Okay, all the best, Mick. Thank you.
Good on you, Mick.
Good on you, mate. See you,
He's a
boys.
beauty. Mick McGuane for Danks Furniture, the comfort of home. 6 fine stores around the metropolitan area.
Great furniture.
Oh,
The best.
been involved. Danks have been involved in the racing game here for 40 years.
Yeah, amazing.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelpline.org.au.